Now, I wanted to ask about how to create capacity among communities and countries, for that matter, to manage their natural resources in both an equitable and sustainable way. I just wondered what other countries or even international development actors can actually learn from an approach such as the one that we have here in Botswana, a very resource-rich country.
Communities are represented by CSO representatives, but of course also by the directly elected representatives and members of parliament, and that's why we work with those type of groups. Here in Botswana, we've seen that, as was put forward this morning by the keynote speaker, Professor Robinson. There's a good political system in place, and that therefore also positively influences natural resource governance. We've also seen that there is an interlinkage between the two. So if you have a country where the political system is not that democratic, you're not that likely to get a good governance of your natural resources. And natural resources themselves also have specific characteristics that do not always promote good governance and democratization, unfortunately. So that's something that we as a community, international community, need to be aware about, so that we can actually see where should we be investing.
And so in terms of that investment, I mean, perhaps it's too early to tell from your reporting, but I just wondered what your sense was of where the investment needs to be made, what sort of partners need to be involved in this activity, and what the kind of ask is of the international development community. I mean, what resources are lacking, what expertise is lacking, and where should the international community come together to really affect sustainable change?
What we're seeing more and more as a policy institute, just as the likes of a World Bank or an IMF, we come in from that technical perspective. We have, on a biannual basis, we produce something called the Resource Governance Index, which looks at accountability in resource-rich countries, and what we see is that about 80% of those countries do not meet those standards. And we look at 4 different pillars, but for me, coming from the parliamentary angle, is the most important one is what is the enabling environment for these countries to actually do well in a natural resource governance. And that's where organizations such as IDEA come in, where we see that their work on political consensus or building programmatic political parties that have a vision for the longer term, because after all, extraction will happen over a very long term. What the vision is of each individual political party. So on the 1st and 2nd of November, we came together with political parties in Ghana, and we had a first meeting around resources, revenues, and we said, okay, what difference does it make if your political party ceases to exist? Is there a niche, is there something particular that you're standing for in this discussion about how to use these oil revenues here in Ghana? And there were no answers to that. And I think that clearly shows that we need to work with a broader group of stakeholders, and we need to create that enabling environment so that in the end, the technical work that we might do with a parliamentary committee is not being faded away in the plenary where there's a vote on specific legislation where a political party says, no, we should do it this way because this is our own interest. And sometimes it's an economic interest as well.